Hello, everyone. Today we will be presenting about the N.E.A.T Harvest Project implementation and evaluation. My name is Kylie Potter, and presenting along with me today will be my fellow group members, Amanda Herring and Hannah Peck. So before we get into our presentation, I would like to thank Madeline Howe and Cheryl Hill from the Knox County Health Department, as well as our professor, Dr. Marcia Spence, for their help with this project. Here is an overview of our presentation today. First, we will start off discussing the background of the N.E.A.T Harvest Project and project implementation. Then we will discuss the survey distribution and results. And finally, we will discuss N.E.A.T Harvest impact on the community and next steps. So before discussing our role in the N.E.A.T Harvest Project, I would like to discuss the findings from both our primary and secondary research for our market basket survey of Knox County, Tennessee, conducted during the fall of 2021. Previous studies have illustrated that leading influences on food choices are taste, convenience, and price. Lower income neighborhoods tend to have fewer and smaller food retailers with higher prices, as well as a smaller variety or even a complete lack of fresh foods, which can result in unhealthy food choices. Therefore, the price of food may be a notable barrier for those of lower socioeconomic status in consuming a healthy diet, thus leading to health disparities between those of lower and higher socioeconomic status. And through the completion of this market basket survey, it was found that there are disparities in food prices, as well as unequal access to fresh and healthy foods. And those who are most affected are residents of Knox County living in the sectors with the lowest median household incomes. Now I'd like to provide an overview of fruit and vegetable consumption here in Tennessee. According to My Plate, elementary school age children are recommended to eat 1 to 2 cups of fruit per day and 1.5 to 3 cups of vegetables per day, according to My Plate, depending on their age, sorry. And according to the 2019 Community Health Assessment for Knox County, 7.9% of high school students reported eating no vegetables in the past week. And according to data collected in 2018, 11.1% of adults in Tennessee ate the daily recommended amount of fruit per day, and 9.6% of adults in Tennessee ate the daily recommended amount of vegetables per day. And with those statistics in mind, I would like to introduce N.E.A.T Harvest. N.E.A.T Harvest is a pilot program that sends home a produce box each month to the kids enrolled in the YMCA After School Care Program to provide fresh foods for the kids and their family. These monthly distributions occur at 3 elementary schools here in Knox County, West Hills Elementary, Green Magnet Academy, and Pleasant Ridge Elementary. And at one of the distributions, families were able to receive 4 russet potatoes, 4 yellow onions, 1 cantaloupe, 4 small apples, 4 navel oranges, 1 head of romaine lettuce, 4 cucumbers, and 1 pint of strawberries in their produce box. And here on the right of the slide, you can see a picture of one of the produce boxes. And looking specifically at how the produce gets from distributors to N.E.A.T Harvest for pickup, there are a lot of moving parts, but we will be focusing on Second Harvest Food Bank because they are the main organization that acquires the produce and gets it ready for families. So Second Harvest of East Tennessee serves many food pantries and many food distribution events around this area, including N.E.A.T Harvest. They acquire the foods for the produce boxes by either purchasing or receiving donations from large distributors. And since these orders are completed with orders for other events, the produce options can vary based on availability. Some other considerations that go into the produce choices are storage time. And Second Harvest tries to receive and distribute items pretty quickly. So sometimes the produce options may be chosen close to the distribution event dates. Temperature needs are also considered. Since these produce boxes are not able to be refrigerated after they leave the warehouse, the foods in these boxes have to be able to withstand temperature changes, as well as be able to travel without mushing or breaking. And then of course, cost. There is a budget, so making sure that the produce quality and quantity are where they need to be without spending too much money is an important consideration in this process as well. So the goal of the Neat Harvest program is to increase access and intake of fruits and vegetables in Knox County, Tennessee by distributing produce boxes to students and their families at priority elementary schools. For our intervention, a survey was created and distributed in March to parents to assess the likability of the food products being given, the impact that the free produce has had on purchasing patterns, and improvements for the program. And the data collected from the recent market basket survey conducted in the fall of 2021 will be used to determine how much money a family would be spending on the food products provided in the distribution box. And we had two outcome objectives. Our first outcome objective is that at the end of the spring 2022 semester, Neat Harvest program operators and community stakeholders will be aware of the survey results. And our second outcome objective is that by the end of the spring 2022 semester, at least 50% of the surveys will indicate that participating students and their families are trying new fruits and vegetables. And our two process objectives are that at the March 2022 distribution event, Neat Harvest staff will distribute and collect at least 25 surveys looking at the likability and usefulness of the produce distribution boxes. And then by April 30th, 2022, the Market Basket survey team will analyze the survey results to determine the effectiveness and likability of the produce distribution events and to determine if any changes need to be made to the current program. And now Amanda will discuss our survey and the results.
So as was mentioned earlier, a survey was created for the March 2022 produce box distribution event. This survey had 11 questions total, with some being multiple choice and some being short answer. The questions asked about how often produce was bought for the family, if the kids or adults were trying new produce since receiving the boxes, how much fruit and vegetables in the produce boxes they were consuming, and what suggestions they had for improvements. A paper copy was created for NEAT workers to distribute at the event. An online survey was also created using Qualtrics, and the QR code for this survey was placed on the paper copies at the event. Once all of the surveys were returned, the data were entered into an Excel spreadsheet for analysis. Looking at the participation rates across the 3 elementary schools, we see that West Hills had the highest number of responses with 23. Green Magnet was below this with 14, and then we only received 4 responses from Pleasant Ridge. Unfortunately, we did not get any responses on the online survey option. Now, our preceptor at Knox County Health Department, Madeline Howe, was able to find the enrollment rates for the after-school programs at these schools. So these are also listed under the participation rates. What is interesting to note is that both West Hills and Green Magnet had over a 50% response rate, while Pleasant Ridge saw only a 10% response rate. In future projects related to Neat Harvest, this is definitely an area that can be revisited in an attempt to get better response rates across all schools. Moving on to the results of the survey, we picked out 5 of the 11 questions to discuss. These questions were selected based on their relevance to our goal and objectives for the project. Displayed here is the first question we will discuss. It asks, since receiving the produce boxes, have your children tried any new fruits or vegetables? The responses were split by school and by answer, which was yes or no. As the graph shows, at least 50% of respondents reported their children trying new produce at all 3 schools. And at West Hills, this percentage comes out to be around 62%. This is very encouraging data. As anyone who has experience with small children can attest, getting them to try new fruits and vegetables can be quite a feat sometimes. Now, this question is very similar to the last one, only it is directed at the adults. Now, probably not surprising, most adults reported that they did not try new fruits or vegetables, although we did see about 30 to 35% say that they did. This is also great data because it shows that the produce boxes are having an impact on not only the kids, but also the adults in their lives as well. Here we have a Likert-like scale inquiring about satisfaction with the Neat Harvest program. Now, most respondents reported either being very satisfied or satisfied, with 2 being neutral. We are seeing consistently high satisfaction rates across the 3 schools, but as mentioned before, we would still like to have more responses, especially from Pleasant Ridge, to be able to create a complete picture. But again, this graph does point to the positive impacts this program is having on Knox County families. Pictured here is a word cloud for the question, what suggestions do you have for improving the program? It was a short answer question and we didn't get a lot of responses, but we did see some similar responses from those who did answer. The most common answer was the word nothing or none. We also got some suggestions to add watermelon or some different seasonal fruits. Now, another suggestion was to create a system where families got to choose the produce they received. And then we also had some reports about some of the produce being overripe or a bit moldy, so they wanted the produce to be checked before the distributions. As was mentioned earlier, the produce box contents can be decided pretty soon before a distribution event, and the options are dependent on availability. So choosing specific produce items may or may not be feasible depending on the order. Now, as for checking produce, perhaps this is something that can be done either at the second harvest warehouse or at the schools before the distribution events. Now, this slide features another word cloud for a question asking about how we can make the distributions more convenient for families. Again, we didn't get a lot of responses, but the main one was the word nothing. We also had requests for scheduled days, informing parents and guardians of the specific produce in the boxes ahead of time, and announcing the distribution days in advance. With the announcing produce in advance suggestion, as has been stated in this presentation, it can be hard to completely predict what all will be in the boxes, but for the suggestions regarding scheduling, currently the distributions do take place on the last Friday of the month, but maybe some families aren't completely aware of the schedule. So sending out a reminder either by paper or email the week before could help give people a heads up before the events. As was briefly discussed earlier in the presentation, a market basket survey was conducted in the Knox County community in the fall of 2021 to assess food prices throughout the county. After gathering data regarding the produce box contents and quantities, we multiplied the prices per ounce by the produce weight to determine the approximate cost a family would need to pay to purchase all of the items in the monthly produce box. As the slide shows, the 3 elementary schools are in 3 different sectors of Knox County, and these sectors are the ones that are used by the Knox County Planning Commission. As demonstrated by the table, depending on what sector a family shopped in, they would pay anywhere from $9.06 in the Northwest County sector to $10.84 in the Northwest City sector for the January produce box. By offering free fruits and vegetables to families across the different sectors in Knox County, we are able to help increase access to these health-promoting foods for all. Now looking at the data from the February produce box, we see again that families shopping in the Northwest City sector would have to pay more for the same amount of produce compared to those in Northwest County and East City. The price differences seen with this month's box are a bit more dramatic than the previous months, partially due to the fact that more items were being included in this box, but there is almost a $6 difference between Northwest City, where Pleasant Ridge is, and Northwest County, where West Hills is located. So again, the N.E.A.T Harvest program offers the same produce across these sectors, which can help families have an increased access to these foods. Just a few more comments about the data overall and some things we noticed. As mentioned earlier, there were a few comments about moldy produce, especially the cucumbers. So this is something that could be taken into consideration when preparing for future distributions. Overall, there have been really positive reception to the program, and the families seem appreciative of the boxes, with most reporting that they are eating most to all of the produce provided. As for impact of buying patterns, there doesn't seem to be too much of an effect on the amount of produce a family is buying. Now, this could partially be due to the fact that the produce amounts are not enough to completely feed a family for a considerable amount of time. Now moving on to looking at if we met our objectives, the first outcome objective talks about letting N.E.A.T operators and community stakeholders know about the results, which is exactly what this presentation is designed to do. So that has been met. The second objective talks about having at least 50% of surveys reporting that families have tried new fruits and vegetables. We have a reported 53% of families saying that they have tried new foods, so that is also met. Moving on to the process objectives, we wanted to distribute and collect at least 25 surveys at the March 2022 distribution event. Seeing as we had a final tally of 41 surveys collected, I would say that this objective has been met. Lastly, we wanted to have all of our data analyzed by April 30th to determine what, if any, changes needed to be made, and the data have all been analyzed. So we have met all 4 of our objectives for this project. Now, switching gears a little to look at how our results compare to other community projects. In 2009, a pilot study was conducted looking at the effects of produce distributions on student fruit and vegetable intake. The results indicated that the distributions promoted an increase in knowledge and acceptance of these items. Now, while our project did not look at knowledge, we did see an increase of acceptance of new fruits and vegetables, just like this pilot study did. In a 2018 German study that looked at multiple produce distribution programs in primary schools found that students reported increased interest and intake of fruits and vegetables after these distribution events. Similarly, our program also found that children were trying new fruits and vegetables after the distributions.
So moving forward, N.E.A.T Harvest could improve their operation by increasing the variety of produce in the monthly bags to maintain participant interest, as well as potentially increase the new foods the participating families are incorporating into their diet. If done year-round, this could even be incorporated into a farm-to-table or eating seasonally type of nutrition education. In addition to this, increasing the number of participating sites will ensure more families are being reached. And lastly, it may prove beneficial to focus on areas with more food price disparities, which we now have the data for after our previous market basket survey analysis. So for our strengths and limitations, having this data is a very useful tool to utilize when moving forward with this program. Additionally, the partnerships between organizations help with resource acquisition and logistics to lessen the overall costs or manpower burdens. Our major limitations were that we only had 2 distributions worth of survey data for this project. Additionally, Pleasant Ridge had a significantly lower response rate than the other 2 sites. Another major limitation of this analysis was the lack of participating sites. With more after-school locations in more areas of Knox County, we would be able to better assess the program as a whole. To address these issues in the future as distributions and surveys continue, some potential routes to increase survey responses can include offering gift cards to local grocery retailers, or even partnering with Nourish Knoxville to offer produce bucks at farmers markets for participating families. Offering some kind of incentive for families to take the time to fill out these surveys would hopefully help us collect the data we would need and decrease the large response rate disparities between schools. This project, through promoting the intake of fruits and vegetables, increases health equity in Knox County by increasing access to healthy and nutritious foods. These produce distributions are given to all families without need-based inclusion criteria, which makes the resource more likely to be socially accepted and therefore utilized. Although the ultimate goal of this program is to increase consumption of produce, it also decreases the burden of food price inequalities seen in Knox County and supported by our market basket survey data. With our survey responses showing how well received this program has been, hopefully we can move forward and continue to spread its reach. And this is our logic model and framework for our project, detailing how we determine our goals and objectives. This shows our available resources or inputs, such as the fresh produce bags distributed, as well as the short, medium, and long-term outcomes from those inputs. These outcomes include the awareness of the surveys, expansion of the project, and the overall effects on consumption of fruits and vegetables, as well as the impact on food insecurity in Knox County. And these are our references. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we look forward to hearing any questions you may have about our project.